Mom went shopping, but never returned. 14 years later, her family discovers why. Imagine this. Your mum says she's going out for groceries, and you think nothing of it. It's just another ordinary day, until it isn't. Hours turn into days, then weeks, and eventually years. 14 long years pass, and the only thing keeping you going is the hope that maybe, just maybe, she didn't leave on purpose. That's exactly what happened to the Dawson family. After 14 years of believing their mother had abandoned them, they uncovered a horrifying truth. Kathryn Dawson hadn't walked away from her family willingly. She was taken, held captive, by a ruthless criminal organization, forced to work off an impossible debt, while her family fractured in her absence. Now, as the Dawsons close in on rescuing her, they realize the nightmare is far deeper than they ever imagined. The story begins with Ethan Dawson, the son who never stopped searching for answers. While his siblings struggled to accept their mother's disappearance, Ethan clung to one unshakable belief: his mom would never leave them behind. His determination became the thread holding together a family torn apart by grief and confusion. But now, after piecing together clues about her fake identity as Elizabeth Carter and discovering that she was trapped aboard a cargo ship involved in human trafficking, the stakes have never been higher. With Detective Vans leading the investigation, alongside federal agencies, the Dawsons thought they were finally close to bringing Kathryn home. Yet, every step forward seems to reveal new layers of danger, leaving them questioning how deep this conspiracy truly runs. As the clock ticks down, we meet the rest of the Dawson family, each carrying their own scars from losing Kathryn. There's Dan, the father whose health deteriorated without his wife by his side. Leah, the eldest daughter who hardened herself against disappointment. Ellie, who poured her energy into caring for her younger siblings. Aldi, who grew up not even remembering his mum. And Mark, the practical brother who tried to move on but couldn't shake the feeling something wasn't right. Together, they form a fragile unit bound by love, loss, and unanswered questions. Their dynamic adds both heartbreak and resilience to the unfolding drama, making their journey all the more compelling. What makes this story so gripping isn't just the mystery surrounding Kathryn's disappearance. It's the emotional weight, and carried by everyone affected. For 14 years, the Dawsons lived in limbo, haunted by the uncertainty of whether Kathryn was alive or dead. And now, as they discover the sinister web she's been caught in, they must confront not only external threats but also their internal struggles. Can they trust themselves to navigate this treacherous path? Or will fear and doubt tear them apart when they need each other most? These are the questions that drive the narrative forward, keeping viewers hooked as the tension builds. Ethan emerges as the central figure in this fight for justice and reunion. His relentless pursuit of the truth has brought them this far, but his impulsiveness often puts him at odds with those around him, especially Mark. The brothers' relationship is strained, marked by frustration and blame, yet there's an underlying bond that refuses to break. When Ethan decides to take matters into his own hands, risking everything to find their mother, Mark reluctantly joins him, setting the stage for a perilous adventure neither of them could have anticipated. Their journey becomes a testament to the lengths we'll go to protect the ones we love, even if it means stepping into the unknown. Meanwhile, the antagonist looms large over the story. Harvey Doss, the mastermind behind the criminal operation, represents everything dark and cruel about the world the Dawsons are trying to dismantle. Ruthless, calculating, and manipulative, he thrives on exploiting desperation, turning people into pawns in his twisted game. As the family learns more about his methods, forcing victims to work under the influence of drugs, erasing identities, and creating elaborate schemes to evade law enforcement. They realize how deeply entrenched he is in the shadowy underworld. His presence casts a chilling shadow over the narrative, heightening the suspense and reminding us of the real-world horrors faced by countless individuals trapped in similar situations. But amidst the darkness, there are glimmers of hope. The Dawsons' unwavering commitment to finding Catherine serves as a beacon of light, proving that love can be a powerful force against evil. Detective Vans, too, plays a crucial role in this battle, embodying the importance of collaboration between law enforcement and families seeking justice. His partnership with Ethan highlights the delicate balance between professional expertise and raw emotion, showing how both are necessary to solve such complex cases. As these characters come together, their shared mission creates moments of triumph and connection that resonate deeply with audiences. Yet, for every step forward, there's a setback waiting just around the corner. The Coast Guard's failed interception of the cargo ship marks a devastating blow to the Dawsons' hopes. They watched as their best chance slipped through their fingers, replaced by an empty vessel left as a decoy. It's a gut-wrenching moment that underscores the cunning nature of their enemy and forces the family to regroup and rethink their strategy. This twist not only raises the stakes, but also sets the stage for the next phase of their quest, leaving viewers desperate to know what happens next. As the story progresses, the themes of trust, betrayal, and survival become increasingly prominent. Catherine's ordeal reveals the harrowing realities of life under captivity, where every decision is weighed against the threat of harm to loved ones. Her resilience, despite years of manipulation and control, speaks volumes about the strength of the human spirit. Meanwhile, the Dawsons grapple with their own vulnerabilities, learning to lean on each other in ways they hadn't before. Their evolution as individuals and as a family mirrors the broader journey toward healing and redemption, offering a poignant reminder of the power of unity in the face of adversity. Just when it seems like the pieces are finally falling into place, a shocking revelation throws everything into chaos. Ethan and Mark's daring attempt to locate El Masin, a warehouse rumored to hold the key to Catherine's whereabouts, leads them straight into the lion's den. Captured by Ronald, one of Harvey's enforcers, they find themselves face to face with the man responsible for their mother's captivity. The confrontation is tense, charged with anger and desperation, as Ethan demands answers, and Harvey toys with their fate. But just when it looks like all hope is lost, Ethan seizes a fleeting opportunity to send a distress signal, setting off a chain reaction that could change everything or cost them dearly. With the Coast Guard closing in and gunfire erupting aboard the cargo ship, the climax of this saga promises to be as thrilling as it is unpredictable. Will the Dawsons manage to rescue Catherine and bring her home after 14 long years? Can they overcome the trauma and mistrust that have defined their lives since her disappearance? And what sacrifices will they have to make along the way? These are the questions that linger in the air as the scene fades to black, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, eager to see how this incredible story unfolds. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this unforgettable tale of courage, family, and the unbreakable bonds that tie us together. The Dawson family's journey to this moment had been anything but easy. 14 years of unanswered questions, sleepless nights, and fractured relationships weighed heavily on each of them. For Ethan, the youngest son who refused to believe his mother had abandoned them, it was a relentless pursuit, fueled by hope and anger. He remembered the day they found her car in the lake, a discovery that initially seemed like closure, but instead opened a Pandora's box of secrets. The fake identity, Elizabeth Carter, led them down a rabbit hole of lies orchestrated by Harvey Doss and his criminal empire. Every clue unearthed only deepened the mystery, pushing Ethan closer to the edge of obsession. Detective Vance became their lifeline during those dark days. His calm demeanor and unwavering dedication gave the Dawsons something to hold on to when everything else felt chaotic. But even he couldn't shield them from the harsh realities of what Catherine had endured. As more pieces of the puzzle came together, the debt she owed, the work she was forced into, the drugs used to control her, it became clear just how calculated and cruel the operation was. These weren't random acts of violence. They were systematic, designed to strip people of their humanity while maximizing profit for Harvey and his men. The revelation left the family reeling, struggling to reconcile the image of the vibrant woman they once knew with the broken figure they now sought to rescue. Ethan's impulsiveness often put him at odds with Mark, whose practical nature made him wary of reckless decisions. While Ethan charged ahead, driven by emotion, Mark tried to temper his brother's actions with logic. Their clashes weren't just about strategy. They were rooted in deeper insecurities and fears. Mark carried the weight of being the responsible one, the sibling everyone relied on after their mother disappeared. He resented Ethan's single-minded focus because it reminded him of all the times he'd failed to keep the family together. Yet, despite their differences, both brothers shared the same goal: bringing their mother home. That shared purpose kept them tethered, even as tensions threatened to tear them apart. As the Coast Guard closed in on the cargo ship, the family allowed themselves a fleeting moment of optimism. The blinking dot on the screen represented more than just coordinates. It symbolized the possibility of reunion, justice, and healing. But when the ship vanished, replaced by an abandoned decoy, the rug was pulled out from under them. The betrayal stung deeply, not just because it meant Catherine was still out there somewhere, but because it confirmed their worst fears. Harvey Doss wasn't just smart, he was ruthless. Leaving behind the GPS tracker and cutting the security, feeds showed how meticulously he covered his tracks, always staying one step ahead. It was a chilling reminder of the power imbalance between the Dawsons and the criminals holding their mother captive. The decision to send the family to a safe house added another layer of tension. On one hand, it underscored the seriousness of the situation. These people weren't just dangerous. They were watching, waiting, and willing to strike if provoked. On the other hand, it forced the Dawsons to confront their own vulnerabilities. Being confined together brought old wounds to the surface. Leah's skepticism, Ellie's protective instincts, Aldi's frustration, and Dan's quiet despair created a volatile mix of emotions. They argued over whether to trust Detective Van's plan, whether Ethan's actions were helping or hurting, and whether they'd ever truly be free of the nightmare that began 14 years ago. When the photograph of Catherine with Elle Marcin written on the back surfaced, it reignited their determination. To Ethan, it wasn't just a lead. It was proof that their mother was still fighting, still trying to reach them. The name itself felt like a lifeline, a thread connecting them to her through the chaos. But the stakes were higher than ever. Javier's cryptic warning about traffickers disappearing inland, coupled with the mention of Miguel and the warehouses, painted a picture of a vast, interconnected network. If they misstepped, even slightly, they risked losing Catherine forever, or, worse, putting the rest of the family in danger. Mark's eventual decision to accompany Ethan to Ensenada marked a turning point. It wasn't just about protecting his brother. It was about reclaiming some sense of agency in a situation that had spiraled far beyond their control. Posing as journalists gave them a fragile veneer of legitimacy, but every interaction carried the risk of exposure. When they finally found themselves face to face with Ronald, the man whose sunglasses had been discovered in Catherine's car, the reality of their predicament hit home. This wasn't a game anymore. It was life or death. And yet, even in captivity, Ethan refused to give up. His desperate attempt to send a distress signal using Ronald's phone was a gamble, one that could have cost him everything. But it also proved his resourcefulness, his refusal to let fear dictate his actions. As the brothers navigated the container maze, their thoughts turned to their mother. What had she endured during those 14 years? How had she managed to survive, let alone maintain any semblance of hope? Each question gnawed at them, fueling their resolve to see this through. Meanwhile, outside the confines of the maze, Detective Vans coordinated the response. Knowing full well that time was running out, the Coast Guard's arrival signaled the beginning of the endgame, a high-stakes confrontation that would determine not just Catherine's fate, but the future of the entire Dawson family. The sound of gunfire echoed through the night, punctuated by shouted orders and the hum of helicopters overhead. Inside the container, Ethan and Mark exchanged a glance, their earlier animosity replaced by a shared understanding. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. As they prepared to make their move, the tension was almost unbearable. Would they find their mother in time? Could they trust the officers storming the ship to distinguish friend from foe? And most importantly, would the truth finally set them free, or shatter what little remained of their fragile bond? The answers lay just beyond the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. As the Dawson family sat together in Catherine's hospital room, the weight of everything they had been through began to settle. For 14 long years, their lives had revolved around unanswered questions, fractured relationships, and the haunting absence of their mother. Now, with her finally back in their midst, it felt surreal, almost too good to be true. Catherine listened intently as each of her children shared snippets of their lives, tears streaming down her face at moments, laughter breaking through others. She marveled at how much they had grown, how strong they had become despite everything. But beneath the surface of this fragile reunion lay lingering scars that couldn't simply vanish overnight. Detective Van's recovery progressed steadily over the following weeks, though he remained adamant about conducting a thorough investigation into Ronald's claim about eyes inside the police department. The revelation shook him deeply. Someone within his trusted circle had betrayed not only the Dawsons, but countless victims caught in Harvey Doss's web. Internal Affairs worked tirelessly to root out the mole, eventually uncovering an officer who had been coerced into leaking information under threats against his family. It was a grim reminder of how far-reaching and insidious such criminal organizations could be. As for Ronald and the remaining members of the operation, the trial loomed on the horizon, a reckoning that would bring some measure of justice for those affected. Catherine's road to recovery proved challenging. Years of captivity, forced labor, and drug-induced compliance had left her physically frail and emotionally scarred. Yet surrounded by her family, she found strength she didn't know she still possessed. Therapy sessions became a lifeline, helping her process the trauma while rebuilding her sense of self-worth. Her bond with Ethan grew particularly strong. She often told him how proud she was of his determination, even if it meant putting himself in harm's way. "You never gave up on me," she said one evening, holding his hand tightly. "I don't think I could have survived without knowing you were out there fighting." The siblings, too, navigated their own journeys of healing. Leah softened her defenses, allowing herself to trust again, After years of expecting disappointment, Ellie stepped back from her role as caretaker, learning to let others share the burden. Aldi, who barely remembered his mother before her disappearance, slowly built a connection with her, finding comfort in her stories and affection. Mark, ever the pragmatist, struggled initially, but eventually admitted that Ethan's impulsiveness might have saved them all. Their arguments faded, replaced by mutual respect and gratitude for having each other. One day, as the family gathered in the backyard of Dan's home, Detective Vans paid them a visit. He walked slowly, leaning on a cane, but his smile was warm and genuine. "I just wanted to see how everyone's doing," he said, taking a seat beside Dan. They talked about the trial, the dismantling of Harvey Doss's empire, and the support systems being put in place for rescued victims. Vans also brought news. Thanks to the evidence provided by the Dawsons and other survivors, federal agencies were cracking down harder than ever on human trafficking networks across multiple states. "Your courage has made a difference," he told them sincerely. "Not just for yourselves, but for so many others." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Memories of happier times resurfaced. Family vacations, holiday traditions, inside jokes that had once seemed lost forever. Catherine laughed freely for the first time in years, her voice carrying a melody none of them realized they'd missed. Until now, even Dan, who rarely ventured outside anymore, looked rejuvenated, his wheelchair positioned close to Catherine, as they held hands quietly. Ethan stood apart for a moment, watching his family interact. He thought back to the photo of Elizabeth Carter, the GPS tracker, the cargo ship, El Marcin, all the pieces that had led them here. So much pain, so much loss. Yet somehow they had emerged stronger. His gaze drifted upward to the stars' beginnings, to twinkle against the darkening sky. There was beauty in the darkness, he realized. Not because it existed, but because it reminded you to look for the light. And tonight, surrounded by the people he loved most, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. In the weeks and months that followed, life slowly returned to something resembling normalcy. Catherine relearned what it meant to live freely, rediscovering hobbies she'd loved before her disappearance. The siblings supported one another, no longer burdened by the shadow of uncertainty that had haunted them for so long. Detective Vans kept in touch, offering updates on the ongoing investigations and occasionally inviting Ethan to sit in on meetings at the station. A subtle nudge toward considering a career in law enforcement. When the trial finally concluded, the verdict brought closure. Ronald and his accomplices were sentenced to decades behind bars, ensuring they could never harm anyone again. Standing outside the courthouse, Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift off his shoulders. Justice wasn't perfect. It couldn't erase the past, but it offered a chance to move forward. As he turned to join his waiting family, he couldn't help but smile. They had faced unimaginable odds, endured heartbreak and betrayal, and come out the other side united. That night, as they sat together under the stars, Ethan voiced what everyone was thinking. "We're not the same people we were before Mom disappeared," he said softly. "But maybe that's okay. We've changed. Yeah, but we've also grown. And now we have the rest of our lives to figure things out together." No one spoke for a moment, letting his words hang in the cool night air. Then, one by one, they nodded, smiles spreading across their faces. It wasn't the ending any of them had envisioned when this journey began, but it was enough. Enough love, enough hope, enough resilience to carry them forward as the stars continued to shine brightly above the Dawson family sat together, grateful for second chances and the unbreakable bonds that tied them together